Welcome to the Hope for Today podcast. Today is day 4.
Today we are going deep, really deep, into Genesis chapters 12 through 15. We're looking at the story of Abram.
And this is so much more than just a historical story, isn't it? It feels like the blueprint for how God relates to humanity through covenant.
Exactly. We're not just going to summarize what happens. We're really looking at how God takes an ordinary person and gives him this world-changing destiny. And then, and this is the key part, how God binds himself to that promise, even when the person messes up.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning, chapter 12, the call itself. God's directive to Abram is, it's just staggering. Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you.
In that world, in the ancient Near East, that's basically a command for societal suicide. Your whole identity, your safety, your legal status, it was all tied up in your family and your land.
So to leave all three,
Mm-hmm.
you're essentially becoming a nobody, a refugee.
Completely. God wasn't just asking him to move, he was asking him to erase his entire social safety net, and for a destination that, wasn't even on the map yet. The land I will show you.
That's the incredible cost. But the promise that comes with it, the sevenfold promise, is just as huge.
It is, and it's so structured. It's not just I'll bless you. It escalates, moving from the purely personal to the global.
Right. It starts with him. I will make you into a great nation, bless you, make your name great. That's his legacy right there.
It covers his immediate concerns, but then you see it pivot. The fourth promise, you will be a blessing. His very existence becomes an act of blessing for others.
And then it goes even bigger with this protective shield. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse.
And the finale, the one that changes everything. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Suddenly, this one man's journey has universal consequences.
And Abram's response is just immediate obedience. The text says he went as the Lord had told him. He's 75 years old, and he just packs up Sarai, Lot, everything they own, and goes.
He does. And when he gets to Canaan, the first thing he does is build these altars.
We often read that as just, a devotional act. He's marking a spiritual moment. But is there more to it? Building an altar at Shechem, and then another one between Bethel and Ai.
Oh, there's so much more. In that part of the world, building a significant stone structure, especially an altar where you publicly call on the name of your God, that was a legal act.
So he's staking a claim.
He's staking God's claim. It's a formal declaration of jurisdiction. He's planting a flag ritually saying, this land belongs to the promise.
Okay, so he's just established his claim. He's walking in faith.
Mm.
And then a famine hits. Almost immediately, the promise is tested.
Right. And this is where we see the first real crack in the foundation. The famine forces him out of the promised land and down to Egypt. And, well, this is where fear starts to take over from faith.
This is the infamous she's my sister moment.
Mm-hmm.
He tells Sarai to lie to protect his own skin.
He does. And it's easy to just label this as cowardice, but there might be a bit more nuance. Some scholars point to certain legal customs of the time.
What do you mean?
Well, in some cultures, a wife could also be given the legal status of sister, which actually offered her more protection and rights. So Abram might have been, well, he was being deceitful for sure, but he might have been using a kind of cultural technicality to try and save himself.
A very shady technicality.
Extremely shady. And it sort of works. At first, Pharaoh takes Sarai, Abram gets rich with livestock and servants, but then God steps in.
And this is the part that always gets me. God intervenes, not because Abram repented, but just because the promise had to be protected.
Exactly. God's commitment wasn't based on Abram's perfect performance. He sends these plagues on Pharaoh's house because Sarai, the mother of the promised line, is at risk. God is protecting his own plan.
So Pharaoh figures it out, calls Abram in, and lectures him. The pagan king is the one with the moral high ground.
An incredibly humbling moment. And Abram is sent away with all his new wealth. But the key to his restoration isn't just surviving, it's where he goes next.
He goes back.
He goes all the way back to that spot between Bethel and Ai where he first built that altar. He's recentering himself, spiritually and physically, right back on the promise.
So once he's back, the problem flips. It's not scarcity anymore, it's abundance. He and his nephew Lot are both so wealthy that the land can't support them.
And that prosperity creates conflict. Their herders start fighting. It's a classic problem.
Abram could have pulled rank, right? As the elder of the patriarch.
He could have. But instead, he shows incredible wisdom and generosity. He says to Lot, let's not quarrel. We're family. And he lets Lot choose first.
And Lot, well, he looks with his eyes, not with his heart.
Ha!
He sees the well-watered plain of the Jordan, and it looks like the Garden of Eden.
It's the obvious business choice. But the text slips in this ominous little warning. He pitched his tents near Sodom, whose people were wicked. Lot chose short-term gain over the moral environment.
But the second Lot leaves. God speaks to Abram again. It's like Abram's generosity unlocked another level of the promise.
It's immediate. God tells him to look in every direction, north, south, east, west, and promises him all of it. And he says his offspring will be like the dust of the earth. The vision gets even bigger.
Which leads us to chapter 14 and this huge regional war. It seems like a side story, but it's crucial for Abram's status, isn't it?
Absolutely. Lot gets captured in the fighting, and Abram doesn't just sit back. He musters his own private army, 318 trained men.
That's a serious force.
It is, and he wins. He routs these kings and rescues Lot and everyone else. This event transforms him from just the rich guy into a legitimate military and political power in the land.
And on his way back, he has these two encounters. First, with this mysterious figure, Melchizedek.
Yeah, Melchizedek, king of Salem, which means peace, and priest of God Most High. He just appears, he brings bread and wine, he blesses Abram, and Abram gives him a tenth of everything.
So Abram's acknowledging a higher spiritual authority.
Precisely. He's recognizing that the victory came from God, which makes his next encounter with the king of Sodom so powerful.
Right, the king offers him all the spoils of war, everything he recovered.
And this is where you see Abram has learned the lesson from Egypt. Back then, he took wealth that came from a compromise. Here, he's earned it righteously, but he refuses every last bit of it.
He says, not even a thread or the strap of a sandal.
So that the king of Sodom could never say, I made Abram rich. He is making an absolute statement. God and God alone is my source.
That's a huge moment of growth. And it sets the stage perfectly for chapter 15, for the covenant itself. God appears and says, do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward.
It's such a personal reassurance. Your shield after the battle he just fought, your great reward after the wealth he just refused. God is saying, I see you. I'm all you need.
But even with that, Abram voices his deepest fear, his one great doubt.
Yes. Sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless? All this land, all this blessing, it's meaningless without an heir. His servant, Eliezer, is set to inherit everything.
And God's response is so tangible. He doesn't just say, trust me. He takes him outside.
He says, look up at the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them. An impossible task. And then he says, so shall your offspring be.
And that leads to maybe the most important verse in this whole story. Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness.
And let's be clear about what that means. It's not that Abram suddenly became perfect. We've seen him fail. Righteousness here isn't a reward for good behavior. It's a status given because he simply took God at his word.
Belief itself is the transaction.
Belief in the impossible promise. That is what God counts as right. But even then, Abram asked for one more thing. How can I know? He needs a sign, a confirmation for the land.
Which leads to this very formal, very strange covenant ceremony.
It's an ancient legal practice. Abram brings these animals, cuts them in half, and lays the pieces opposite each other. The custom was that the two parties making the deal would walk between the pieces together.
And what was the significance of that?
It was a self-maledictory oath. You were essentially saying, if I break this covenant, may I become like these dead animals. It was the most solemn oath you could take.
That's not what happens here.
Not at all. As the sun is setting, Abram falls into a deep sleep. And then, in the darkness, he sees a smoking fire pot with a blazing torch pass between the pieces.
Just the fire pot and torch.
Just that. That's the visible presence of God. Abram is asleep. He's not participating. God walks through the pieces alone.
Wow. So God is taking the entire oath upon himself.
Exactly. It's a unilateral promise. God is saying, this covenant depends entirely on my faithfulness, not yours. If it's ever broken, the curse falls on me. It's one of the most radical moments in Scripture. The promise rests completely on God.
So we've traced this incredible journey, from Abram leaving everything he knew to his failures, his generosity, and finally to this moment where God guarantees the promise himself.
And God defines the vastness of that commitment one last time, specifying the boundaries of the land from the river of Egypt to the Euphrates. His word is absolute.
Based on his action, not Abram's.
So if you step back from this whole journey, you see Abram is called, he takes that radical step of faith, he stumbles dramatically in Egypt, he recovers through humility and integrity, and in the end, his belief is his defining act.
Faith is just trusting God's promise when everything around you screams impossibility. And the big takeaway is that God acts as your shield. He is your reward, and he holds fast to his covenant no matter what.
The fact that righteousness is credited simply by belief, that encourages us to rely on God's faithfulness, not our own performance.
The promise rests on the one who walked between the pieces.
Which really leads to the next question, doesn't it? After a covenant that dramatic, how long can you actually hold on to that belief? Trusting God's timing can be the hardest part.
It is. Because the rest of the story is all about that tension between belief and impatience.
Tomorrow on day 5, we'll explore exactly how that faith keeps getting tested and how the pursuit of the promise sometimes leads us to try and help God out with his timing. That was it for day 4. Meet you on day 5 tomorrow.